Hello again everyone and welcome back to the channel. It's a very warm day on the allotment today. Usually I do these sowing videos in the greenhouse, but it's 40 degrees Celsius in there at the moment, so I don't want to cook. And that's with the vents and the door open as well. It is scorching today. Now these sowing videos have proven to be quite popular over the last few months, so I thought I'd do another one. Now you might be thinking July, it's not really a month that we think about sowing seeds. It's not. We usually think about sowing seeds March, April, May, maybe June, but July is the middle of summer. Everything's growing rapidly, we're busy in the garden, we're looking after the crops that we've already sown earlier. We're actually harvesting some of those crops as well. And we don't really think about sowing much more, but actually there's loads. Here's my pile of seeds that we could be sowing in July. So maybe you've just got a new garden, or you've just acquired an allotment, or maybe you just haven't had time to sow any seeds yet. If you're any one of these, don't worry, because there's still time to sow some stuff. A lot of these things are quicker growing crops. Some of them will actually give us harvest in the winter, and even some of them next spring as well. So we're thinking ahead in today's video for later. And quite a few of these can be successional sown as well, so we can get a few harvests this growing season. Now I just want to start off by saying some things that take longer to grow, like tomatoes, peppers, aubergines, things like that, you're probably going to want to go to the garden centre and get some already established plants. Get plants that are already growing and already have flowers and fruit on them if possible. July is way too late to be sowing tomatoes and peppers and aubergines. If you were to sow them now, you're not going to get anything this growing season unless you live in a tropical climate. I live in the northwest of England in zone 8B, in case you're wondering. So the first one, which I've made quite a few sowings of already this year, I've sown them like 3 times now. I've sown some just a few days ago as well, and that is salad leaves. I've got this very reliable packet of mixed leaves there. I sow these every single year, they're brilliant. I've been picking these now for like 2 months, I think. I started harvesting them April, May time. So you can sow some of those in July. Just make sure that you keep them shaded, because warm weather in the middle of summer can cause them to bolt pretty fast, and when they bolt they're not very palatable. In fact, I've got some lettuce plants over here that have bolted. I need to pull them out. Even the slugs won't touch them. Now another leaf that you can sow in July is rocket. This stuff grows very fast and it's quite sensitive to warm weather, I've found. I sowed some rocket in April, and literally about a month later it had bolted and gone to seed. So it's important that you do keep it shaded, because it will bolt. But you can sow some of those in July as well. Spinach as well, you can get some spinach sown in July too, because that grows quite fast. Again, make sure it's shaded because it can bolt quite easily as well. I recommend growing perpetual spinach because that will give you a harvest through a longer period of time. I actually sowed some spinach last August, I think it was. I actually overwintered it and was harvesting spinach for quite a while this spring. So now a very fast growing crop which you can sow in July is radish. This is French breakfast radish. You can sow some of those in July and get a crop literally like a month later. It's one of the fastest growing vegetables out there, and delicious to eat with salads as well. When you're harvesting your tomatoes, your cucumbers, your mixed lettuce, which hopefully you can be harvesting during the summer if you keep it shaded, and your onions and all your other lovely salad crops, you can be enjoying some lovely crisp radish roots as well in your salads. Now another vegetable which you can enjoy in your salads is the beetroot, one of my favourites. I've sown a few of those as well. These are a good one for successionally sowing. I've sown some every month this year. I've already harvested some, although it did bolt because of the very strange weather we had in the spring. But I have sown a couple more sowings since, and I've got the standard bolt hardy beetroot, I've got the stripy beetroot here, and I've also got this lovely golden beetroot as well. So you can sow some of those in July and harvest them just a couple of months after you've sown them. They're quite fast growing crops, and there really isn't anything like a freshly cooked homegrown beetroot. It really is lovely. completely different world to the pickled stuff that you buy in the supermarket. Another root vegetable which you can sow in July is carrots as well. I recommend sowing early nants because they're quite a fast growing variety of carrot and they can be enjoyed as baby carrots as well. Alternatively, you could try some chantenay carrots, which are a much smaller stumpy carrot which will be harvested much earlier as well. But if you want to harvest some carrots in autumn and winter and want to store them as well, I would recommend Autumn King because those, being a main crop carrot, will give you high yields later on in the season towards the end of the year, which will store better as well. So I've sown a couple of sowings of carrots. I've got some of the rainbow carrots, I've got sweet candle, early nants, and I've got some of these Autumn Kings as well. I don't have any more room to sow them though. I've filled up 2 beds full of them. Another root vegetable which you can be sowing in July is Swede. Swede is quite a fast growing crop and you can sow some of them now to get a harvest in the autumn and winter. Hopefully you can get some Christmas veg if you sow some of those in July. I would sow some more in July, but I've already got a full bed of them. I don't have any more room for anything actually, to be honest with you. I've not got much room for anything, but they're actually doing quite well. And even turnips as well, which is basically like a small version of a Swede. You can get some of those sown in July. Leeks as well. I absolutely love leeks. They are brilliant. I've got Musselburgh and I've got this variety which Ali sent me from Canada. Monstrous Carrington, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I sowed some Musselburgh quite early in the season and they're doing blooming really good actually. Those will be harvested soon. July, which it's very early actually. Usually leeks are sown 1 year and then harvested in the winter or even next spring. Usually they're not harvested in the middle of summer. So you can sow some leeks in July. I would just direct sow a row of them in a bed outside, and after about 4, 5, 6 weeks you'll have some leeks that are getting to pencil thickness that can be transplanted somewhere else in the garden. They do take up the ground for quite a long time, they do take a while to grow, and if you sow them now they'll be harvested in the autumn and winter, and you can still be picking some next spring as well, but bear in mind that the following year they can bolt quite quickly when things start to warm up. Now I forgot to mention, all of these things can be direct sown outside, by the way. You can sow some of them in modules under cover to protect them if you've got a problem with pests, and then transplant them out after they've got to a good size, or you can just direct sow the seeds outside if you want. Now we've got some brassicas which you can be sowing in July as well. Broccoli. Broccoli is the first one. This one takes just a couple of months to harvest. So if you sow some broccoli in July, you can be harvesting some a couple of months later in September before things start to get cold. Even October actually as well, because it is a cool season crop anyway. And I've not actually got a packet of these seeds, but you can sow some cauliflower as well in July, particularly the variety all year round, which I'm growing. I've already sown the last of them, that's why I don't have a packet anymore. But I have harvested some amazing cauliflower this year. I'm really impressed at how well they're doing. We've had a really warm, dry spring with lots of sun, so I think that is the reason why. Broccoli as well, actually. We've had some huge broccolis. So cauliflower can be sown in July for some crops towards the end of the growing season, and even stuff like kale as well. I've got red Russian kale, so kale red Russian, and the black Tuscany kale as well, which I quite like. I quite like this one. You can sow those in July for harvesting through the winter and into next spring as well. Now a really good one for overwintering, we're thinking ahead here, is purple sprouting broccoli. I've heard quite a few people ask, why is my purple sprouting broccoli not giving me any harvests? And it's simply because it's a biennial. It will grow in its first year and then overwinter, and then the following season it will produce a crop in the spring. So you can sow some of these purple sprouting broccoli seeds in July, get the plant to a decent size before the winter arrives, and then the following spring you will get some lovely purple sprouting broccoli. So that's a good one for the hunger gap when nothing else is really growing in the winter. So I've actually got a successional sowing of Brassacas here, which I sowed about a month or so ago in hopes that I can plant these outside in the brassica beds once the broccoli, the cauliflower and the cabbage have been harvested. I think I may be able to do that. I've got some cabbage and broccoli here which I sowed about a month ago. Those can be going out in the raised beds once I've removed the broccoli plants which are currently in there. So again, I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking, what crops can I put in the beds once what's in there already has been harvested? Because I don't like leaving beds emptied, and I don't like letting the ground go fallow for an extended period of time. Similarly here, oh gosh, blimey, wow, these are really heavy. I've got a huge tray of more brassicas. We've got kale here, we've got purple sprouting broccoli, we've got some red Savoy cabbage, we've got some red cabbage called red calibos, which is good for salads. These will hopefully be going in the raised beds once I've harvested what's already in there. Fingers crossed. I may actually not have any space. I've actually got even more over here. That's not even all of them. I've got some more here. These are purple sprouting broccoli, red cabbage, lots of lovely brassicas to go in there after I've harvested what's already in there. So we're thinking ahead, we're successionally sowing every month really. We're sowing a few every month or two from January right through till July, even August. In fact, we're sowing pretty much every month of the year really. It's just towards the end we're not sowing quite as much, but there's always things to be sown really through most months. Now we're coming towards the end of the list now. You can sow some dwarf French beans in July. You could probably try to sow some climbing French beans if you want, but because it's getting a little bit late, you may only get a crop really late in the season with those, maybe September. But for a much quicker harvest, you can sow some of the dwarf bush French beans instead. I've got opera here. Tender green is another nice variety. I've got some dwarf French beans in a raised bed over there actually, and they are the purple variety. I have some green ones as well, but I'm also trying some of the purple varieties as well, so that is quite interesting. And another really fast growing crop which you can sow in July as well is the courgettes. You can sow these under cover and get them off to a head start in 9cm pots if you want, and then plant them outside afterwards, or you can just direct sow them if you want. But they grow really fast, so that is why you can sow these in July. From sowing to harvest, you're talking like 60 days really, so you can be harvesting these towards the end of the growing season. And I would recommend that you don't sow too many of these, by the way, because they do produce a lot of courgettes, especially if you pick them regularly. You can be harvesting several courgettes per week just off a couple of plants, so 2 plants is enough for a small family, I would say. And you best enjoy eating courgettes as well if you are just growing a couple of plants, because you will get a lot, trust me. But interestingly for me, I've had a bombardment of broccoli, not courgettes yet, although I don't think it's going to be too long. But usually it's the courgettes that give us a glut, not the broccoli. Yeah, I've been giving broccoli away to friends and family recently because they're just too much. July and August, you can start thinking about Christmas potatoes. There are a few varieties that are well suited for Christmas potatoes. Charlotte is one of them that's quite well suited for that. I'm not going to be growing Christmas potatoes simply because I have a big problem with blight every single year. That is the yield. I have nothing to say. So if I were to grow potatoes for Christmas late in the season when the blight is present, it's just going to take them all out, so I don't really grow them. But if you don't have a problem with blight, absolutely fine, get some Christmas potatoes started in July and August, no problems at all with that. So those are some of the things that you can sow in July. If there's anything that you think I've missed, do let me know in the comments below. And if there are other crops which you want to know about that I've not mentioned and you want to know if you can sow them in July, don't be scared to ask in the comments below. Jim, I've got some of these seeds, can I sow these in July? And I'll try and answer in the best way I can, because it's difficult to go over absolutely everything in one video. There's so much, you know, there's so much that you can plant. There's like thousands of different vegetables out there. Some of those I might sow in July, possibly if I have space. Probably not. I do have a full allotment now with no room. What are you sowing in July? Do let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you've got any questions at all, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Drop them down in the comments below and I'll try and answer it in the best way I can. Happy growing, happy harvesting, happy sowing, and enjoy the summer weather. I will see you in the next one.